Hey everybody, it's Mike Ambrett with FlipNerd.com. Welcome back for another Flip Show. Today I have with me Joe McCall. He is an experienced real estate investor, coach, mentor, author. He's a fellow podcaster, which we'll talk a bit about. And he focuses a lot on building systems and automating his real estate business to make his life easy and really run the business that all of us want to have. So before we get started with Joe, let's take a moment to recognize our featured sponsors. RealtyMogul.com is an online marketplace for real estate investing, connecting borrowers and capital from accredited and institutional investors. Get a rehab loan fast and close in as little as 10 days. Rates start as low as 9%. We'd also like to thank National Real Estate Insurance Group, the nation's leading provider of insurance to the residential real estate investor market. From individual properties to large-scale investors, National Real Estate Insurance Group is ready to serve you. Please note, the views and opinions expressed by the individuals in this program do not necessarily reflect those of FlipNerd.com or any of its partners, advertisers, or affiliates. Please consult professionals before making any investment or tax decisions, as real estate investing can be risky. Hey Joe, welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, good. Glad to have a fellow podcaster on. So, go ahead and introduce yourself and then tell us a little bit about your podcast as well before we dig into the topic of the day.
Yeah, Mike, I've been wholesaling properties since 2009. I got started in 2006. I read the infamous Rich Dad, Poor Dad book and learned. I got excited about real estate, started buying a bunch of properties, got in a ton of debt, way over my head, made a ton of mistakes. And through those mistakes, I learned the power of wholesaling. And I got into a world of trouble and got on the brink of bankruptcy and got out of that and started wholesaling properties in 2009 and been working full-time doing that since 2009, actually. And I love this business. I love working from home. The coffee's better at home. The bathrooms are cleaner. There's no commute. The other day I had some meetings in downtown St. Louis, and I got stuck in traffic both days, and I just could not believe how I guess I take for granted and I forget how miserable 90% of the world is every morning. Not the world, but I mean like in the United States, who are stuck in traffic trying to get to their jobs. Yeah. But anyway, I started the podcast because I love teaching and helping people. It's called Real Estate Investing Mastery. Started the podcast about 3 years ago, and get to interview great people and teach things and talk about what's working now. And it's a lot of fun. I just really enjoy doing what I do.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, the cool thing is we have the two best podcast guys on the show at the same time right here. So anybody watching this, forget all those other guys and just go right to these two.
No, here's the cool thing. There's a lot of really good podcasts out there. And I'd say that, podcasting world is really exploding, and a lot of people are discovering podcasts, they're getting their Androids or their iPhones and starting to find out that there's these really good shows out there that they can listen to on demand whenever they want.
Right.
And I love the podcast medium, and it's just a great way to give great information out to people, to help people. And, I look at what got me started in this business, and I'm so grateful for my coaches and my mentors that got me started. And so it's just kind of a way, honestly, to give back a little bit.
Yeah.
And I love teaching people, and I partner with students. I partner with listeners all the time from my podcast on deals. Partner on deals with students.
That's great.
So it's awesome.
Yeah, and I think just the opportunity. I know you're part of Collective Genius and probably some other mastermind groups, but I think it just helps you stay sharp, helps me stay sharp to get to talk to other people that are in the business and learn things and take little nuggets away and maybe do something with it or not. But I think it just helps you kind of stay sharp, and it kind of breaks up the monotony of your day-to-day business, because real estate investing, for a lot of folks, it can be a real lonely business sometimes. If a lot of folks are, lone wolves out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, great. Well, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started, a little bit more about it, and what you did before real estate investing, And then I'd love to talk some more about kind of all your automation stuff. I know you're a big systems guy.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'm a systems guy, I think, because my engineering background. I was born and raised in Southern California, and still love the beach. And I try to go out. In fact, I was just there a few days ago.
Yeah.
But so I went to Iowa State University. For some reason, don't ask me why, I moved from San Diego to Des Moines, Iowa.
Yeah.
Go Cyclones. Those of you, I went to Iowa State University. Those of you who know who the Iowa State Cyclones are. But I got an
I grew up just a few hours from there, actually.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I went to Iowa State University, got a degree in engineering. I got married my senior year in college, my last year. Actually, I went for 6 or 7 years. I got married my last year, and my wife and I went to Prague in the Czech Republic for about 6 months through a student exchange program. And we fell in love with world travel. And we went out again in 2000. I got a job with a big engineering company in Kansas City. We moved there and started traveling all over the country doing large power plants, building large power plants. Eventually moved to St. Louis and started wholesaling properties right about that in 2006.
Yeah.
Buying properties in 2006, started wholesaling in 2009. But I've always been kind of this thinker, systems analytical guy, right? Well, I found that for me, I'm wired where I have to analyze everything, right? And I have to know all the answers, and I have to have all of my what ifs figured out. And I have to understand steps 1 through 8, all the way through before I start even doing steps 1 and 2. And that can become a hindrance and a roadblock for a lot of people. And for me, I would buy a bunch of courses and I'd study and I'd have it all figured out. And then I would buy another course because I thought there was some missing key, missing piece in that other course. So I'd buy that other course. And then I had a bunch of courses, but I'd never done anything with them. And then I would take the best of each of them and try to mash them together in my own thing. And I started doing a bunch of different kinds of deals. And I was really struggling because I was trying to be a jack of all trades, but a master of none. And I was always afraid to take action because I felt like I had to have all the answers.
Right.
I had to have it all figured out. But it became a real problem where I was spending more money on education than I was making. And we were on the brink of bankruptcy, and I was trying to figure it all out. And I wanted to be a full-time real estate investor. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go back to the basics, the fundamentals of real estate investing, which I believe is wholesaling, learning how to find a good deal, how to negotiate at a good price, and flip it and sell it, either to another investor or to an owner-occupant. And so I did buy one more course, and I said, I'm just going to do what this guy says. And it was Chris Chico's course on virtual wholesaling. And I said, I'm going to do what Chris says, whether I like it or not. I'm not going to worry about steps 7 and 8 before I start doing steps 1 and 2. So I read the first chapter, and I did that. And then I read the second chapter, and I did that. And it really was hard because I was like, well, what if this happens? Or what about that? And, oh, my goodness, what if they say this? And I just said, I've got to do this. So I sent out his postcards. I started using his phone scripts. I started asking the sellers the questions like he had them, even though I didn't like it, even though I thought that I knew there was a better way. And so all of a sudden it worked. I started making money. I couldn't believe it. I was floored that I was now making $5,000 to $10,000, $13,000. My first deal was $13,000.
That's great.
And I started making money doing what these guys taught. And it just blew me away that could happen to me. And so then I started wholesaling lease options, which I can talk about later if you want. But when I started flipping lease options, within about 3 months, my part-time income flipping lease options surpassed my full-time income at my engineering job. And that's when I quit and started doing it full-time in 2009.
That's awesome. That's all. And that's what everybody wants, right, is to be able to replace your job. So, I mean, it's a starting point. And then, of course, you want to raise the goal to another level. So
my goal, I wanted to have like 6 months of income in the bank, and that didn't work out. But I was consistently for 3 or 4 months flipping deals regularly with income that was surpassing my full-time income. So I knew if I left, I could devote more time into it.
Right.
Which leads me into the whole systems things, and I can talk about that if you want. But it was
it'd be interesting to hear your take because as a I don't know we inside of my system we have a personality profile kind of like the Myers-Briggs we take, and we call the way that you explained yourself, we would refer to you as a high green, which is basically just analytical, and you like defined what we refer to as a high green in my system, and it's just that you want everything to be perfect, and you're very systems oriented. The challenge is,
I'm going to guess that you're the same way, Mike.
I've got some green in me, but gosh, we don't have enough time to talk about my profile.
All right,
I'm screwed up now.
Well,
but I think the great thing is you need people like you to be able to define those processes, because there's so many people that just want to go get after it, but they don't know what to do. They need some definition around how to define that. So it sounds like you found the best of both worlds.
Well, what people need to know is they need to know their strengths, and they need to know their weaknesses, right?
Right.
So it's not, you shouldn't beat yourself up because you're like one type of personality and not this other type.
Right.
What you need to do is create systems and find people that can do the other things for you. So if you're really good at analyzing deals, that's great. If you know how to set up systems and do the marketing, that's great. So then you need to find other people that can do that stuff that you're not good at. Like, I know how to talk to sellers, and I know how to close it, negotiate, and get a good deal. But I had to work really hard to do that.
Yeah.
And I've found other people that are better at it than I am.
Yeah.
That I send the leads to them, and they go and negotiate with that seller and build a rapport because they're better at it than I am.
Yeah, I think what you said before we even had this kind of second conversation here, and you were talking about how you knew that the problem was you not being able to get past the system. Very few people that I know that are like that need that box to play within, and they never have enough information. Very few of them actually realize that they're part of the problem.
Yeah.
So to hear you say that, it was interesting. I would encourage everybody that's listening right now to think about what you just said, which is it's important to understand who you are and know what your weaknesses are, and then try to figure out ways to overcome it, whether it's partnering with somebody or working with somebody or getting a coach or a mentor or a course or whatever it might be to help fill out those areas that you might be not as strong in.
But for heaven's sake, stop overanalyzing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thing. Just take action. It's okay if you make a mistake, right?
Yep.
It's not going to be the end of the world. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to have your business logo figured out, and your website, and your business cards, and your bank accounts, and your LLC, and corporation, and all that. That's important stuff. But I just heard this phrase the other day: "Done is the new perfect." And so many times we try to get things perfect before we take any action, or understand everything 100% before we take action. And that's what we're taught in college. You go through school and you study all of this stuff to get ready to go into the real world. Well, the real world isn't all cookie cutter like we want it to be.
Right.
And
especially in real estate.
Oh, real estate's the worst. It's definitely the farthest thing from cookie cutter. Every single deal is different. There's always something new that comes up. Well, you got to understand the basics. And I tell people all the time, look, just focus on steps 1 and 2 and let 7 and 8 worry about itself. It's almost like, I'm not advocating this 100%, but sometimes you just got to jump off the building and figure out how to fly as you're falling, And the most successful people I see are like that.
Yeah.
They're ready, fire, aim.
Yeah.
And I was stuck in the ready, aim, 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 aim. And then I would go back to ready and study some more and aim, 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 and I could never get to fire.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead and buy that one more course, or dust off the dust from that other course that you just bought, and just focus on that one thing and say, all right, I'm going to do this, and I'm not going to let anything stop me. I'm not going to get distracted by anything else. I'm just going to do what this guy says. Step 1, step 2. All right. So that's what I tell people. Just focus on one thing and figure that out, get it done, and then move on to the next thing, and focus on that one thing until it's set up and systemized, and then go to the next thing and set that up until it's systemized. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And it's hard to want this, but in all honesty, the best learning experiences you have are your failures.
Yes.
So nobody wants to fail, and believe me, I don't even want to fail. But when you do, you tend to learn the most and say, well, that's the last time that's going to happen.
Well, you're failing forward fast. There's another podcaster, I think it's Justin Williams maybe, that talks about that. at House Flipping HQ. Great podcast. But anyway, failing forward fast, right? It's you're failing, but you're failing forward, and it's fast, right? So you're making progress. You can't steer a parked car. You can't.
Yeah.
And I was parked for years, and it's finally when I started moving and progressing and making mistakes that I started making money.
Yeah. So a lot of real estate investors end up creating a job for themselves, in many ways, and it's a roller coaster job because not many folks are doing high volume, and it's you get even if you're doing a deal or two a month, which for some folks sounds like a lot. You might go 4, 5, 6 weeks without buying a house, and then you buy 2, and it's just a roller coaster emotionally and even financially. It can be, and so I can appreciate your need and interest in systems because I'm the same way. So talk a little bit about the importance of systems for real estate investors and how they, if you talk about, without getting too specific on which CRMs and stuff like that, that's a little bit paralyzing too, because there's a million of CRMs out there and none of them do exactly what you need. Like there's bits and pieces that, wow, if this one just did what this one does, but didn't have that. And it's easy to get paralyzed with technology and putting systems in place. But just talk a little bit about the importance of it and how folks can kind of get past the paralysis that can easily happen.
Paralysis of analysis.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you the importance of it by kind of telling you my story and how I got into it. Because I was working 50, 60 hours a week at my job, and I loved my job. I liked the people I was working with, but I hated my cubicle. I call it my cubicle. In fact, I was visiting a friend, and I was looking at renting some office space for me and my assistants. And he didn't have any of the window offices available. The only offices he had were in the middle of the room with cubicles. And I walked in there and I literally got sick to my stomach. I got this queasy feeling of like, oh, I could never, ever work in a cubicle again.
Yeah.
And then I saw some of the people in there had Windows. They had a Microsoft Windows and they had Outlook like I used to use in my former employer.
Right.
And I felt like vomiting. I see Outlook and I'm thinking, oh, I could never do that again. But that's my own. I'm a big Apple fan now. But anyway, I knew I was working 40, 50, 60 hours a week. And I didn't have the time to do everything. And so I started doing a lot of marketing. I was doing a lot of marketing on Craigslist. And I realized, I can get somebody else. If I could train a virtual assistant to do this for me, that'll handle my lead problem. Because I was like, you talk about the roller coaster. So I would do a bunch of marketing, and then I would take a bunch of calls, and I'd get flooded with calls. And so I'd shut my marketing off so I could handle the leads. I'd get some properties under contract, and then I'd work real hard at getting them sold.
Yeah.
And then I'd start making some money, and I'm all excited, but I turn around and there's no more leads coming in.
Right.
And I'm freaking out, and I'm thinking, oh, great. And it's not like a light switch you can just turn off and on. It takes time for that marketing to get going again. It's kind of like momentum. It builds momentum as it goes. So I realized to avoid those peaks and valleys, I need to get somebody to do that marketing for me in spite of me. And I thought, okay, how could I get a VA or somebody? At first, I hired some local assistants. And I just used Odesk at the time.
Yeah.
And I found somebody in Indiana. And then I was thinking, well, I could get somebody in the Philippines to do some of this stuff for me. So I got some people in the Philippines, and I started creating. I just wrote down everything I was doing, step by step, what I was doing, and I put it in a Google Doc. And then I created a video of me walking through that stuff.
Right.
And there's a tool that's still around called Jing, Jing. So I created a Google Doc that listed everything I did step by step, and the marketing that I was doing with postcards and with Craigslist. And then I created a video of me doing that stuff and demonstrating it and talking about it. And Jing allows you to upload that video, and then it gives you a URL. It gives you a link. Mm-hmm. So I'd put those links at the top of the Google Doc. I'd find a virtual assistant, and I would just share that Google Doc with them. And they would watch the videos and see the outline and then use my spreadsheets and all. Then they would start doing that marketing for me.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden now I had kind of like a procedures manual of all these different things. And if my VA quit or if I had to hire an additional one, I just shared that Google Doc with them. I wouldn't have to spend any time training my new VAs. So it started working out really well because now my leads, my marketing is just going out for me in spite of me. Because, and I should have mentioned this first, because I realized early on that marketing is the most important part of this business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Marketing, we're not in the real estate business. We're in the marketing business. And lead flow is the lifeblood of the business. It's the most important thing. If you get anything out of anything I say, you've got to be an expert at marketing. So I knew that early on. I got now a VA. I have a VA now doing all of my marketing. The leads are coming in consistently. All I have to worry about is answering the phone or returning phone calls, whatever. Then all of a sudden I'm realizing I don't have much time to talk to sellers because the leads now are coming in and there's a lot of them. And the only time I can talk to sellers are during my lunch break or my drive home because I had 2 or 3 kids at home at the time. And so I found a friend that started taking those calls for me, and I paid him a commission, and I gave him the script, gave him the training. And I said, talk to them, ask them these questions, and if they say yes to these questions, schedule the time to go see them at their house, give them this 1-page contract. I tried to keep it as simple as I could, and then once you get it under contract, great. So he started doing that, and then I started getting properties under contract, and now I don't have time to sell them, so what am I going to do? Well, I created a system for that. And I started hiring realtors to sell my properties for me. And I gave them a simple checklist, about 30 different things to do when they get my properties under contract. And I would pay my realtors an average of about $500 per deal. And so now while I'm still doing my full-time job, I have virtual assistants in the Philippines that are bringing the leads in. I have a local friend who's my acquisitions manager, quote unquote, and he's taking the calls, meeting with the sellers, and he has a simple script. And he gives them my 1-page contract. And he started doing a lot of these deals over the phone, closing them without even seeing the homes.
Wow.
And then I have a realtor who will take, once we get under contract, will take my checklist, will take pictures of the home, put signs in the yard, put a lockbox on the door, take the calls, put it on my website, put it on Craigslist, take the calls, take the applications, and show the properties. And we'll do all of that, just like a leasing agent would, because these were a lot of lease options that I was doing. And so that's when I quit my job, and I was doing 3, 4, 5 deals a month just with that system. And I quit my job, and I wasn't actually working any more in real estate for a number of hours. I just kept that going, and I started duplicating it then in other markets.
I see.
And then my wife and I, that was 2009 when I quit my job. A couple years ago, so in 2012, we went to the Czech Republic for 2 months. We went to Prague. In fact, this is one of our coffee mugs we got there.
Yeah.
Starbucks, you'd think normally, you don't want to see American franchises in Europe, but I love Starbucks because it's the only place you can buy brewed coffee, right? Everyone there also only sells like espressos and stuff. Yeah. I just like plain old brewed coffee, and so Starbucks was our favorite. We never went to McDonald's, but we went to Starbucks all the time. Well, anyway, while we were there in Prague for 2 months with my 4 kids, my wife homeschools our older kid, my team and the system I was talking about wholesaled 2 or 3 properties. They flipped 2 properties 100% without my involvement, and they got a 3rd one under contract. And they would, again, have the VAs do the marketing. I had the local acquisitions guy take the calls. A realtor would sell the properties, et cetera, et cetera. And so ever since then, I've just been a huge systems guy, knowing that the power is in the systems. So I talk about the 3 keys to success: marketing, automation, and delegation, right? Marketing is number 1. You have to be a master of marketing. But then you create the systems that will turn that marketing on autopilot to get it done for you in spite of you, right? There's systems that, just like McDonald's, how can a multi-billion-dollar company be run by a bunch of teenagers?
Right.
Well, they have the systems, and everything's done the same way. And then the delegation part of it is finding the people who can start implementing those systems for you.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been doing ever since.
So on the buy side, are you're buying houses over the phone? I mean, is that typically happening, or you have somebody that's actually going out and negotiating?
Both, yes.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of traditional wholesaling and wholesaling lease options.
Okay.
And basically traditional wholesaling, you find a property at a discount,
right,
and you sell it to another investor. We're doing a lot of those rentals. We're wholesaling a lot of rentals right now to landlords out of state in St. Louis. And our website, if anybody's interested, is stlouiscashflowdeals.com. stlouiscashflowdeals.com. We don't even put many of our properties on there because we sell them so fast, but you'll see some example properties on there. That's traditional wholesaling. Then I also flip lease options, where we get a if the seller wants too much money, and if it's a nicer house and there's not enough equity, we'll approach the deal as a tenant buyer, and we'll say, hey, what if we could lease your property for a couple of years and then buy it? That wouldn't work for you, would it? So then we get the property under a lease option contract. We're the tenant buyers, the seller's the seller, but we have the right to assign that contract. So we'll advertise it and find a pre-qualified tenant buyer that has a realistic shot of getting a mortgage in 1 or 2 years, who has at least 2 to 3% to put down, and we'll assign or sell our contract to that tenant buyer, and then we're out of the picture, and we keep as an assignment fee 2 to 3%.
Okay.
So we approach every seller as, we want to buy your house. And if there's not enough equity, if they want too much, if our cash offer doesn't work, then we offer lease purchasing.
Yeah.
And we wholesale that to a tenant buyer.
So of your, like in terms of a percentage of your leads, can you talk about what percentage you're able to do a wholesale lease option on? Because a lot of folks, quite frankly, they want the house to go away, or the house needs too much work to where you probably, I don't know what kind of condition you're able to sell them in with a wholesaling a lease option, but they generally probably need to be livable, right?
Well, we only do lease options on the nicer homes, and in St. Louis, that would be homes over $100,000.
Okay.
So I do 2 different kinds of marketing, and right now we're focusing most of our marketing on traditional wholesaling to find the cheap rental properties and flipping them to landlords. Because we got buyers from out of state that are buying anything and everything that we find. So the great thing about traditional wholesaling is you only need 1 or 2 buyers, and they'll buy all of your properties. With lease options, you need a new buyer for every property that you get. So we've been finding it right now in this market. It's just, you read the book, Who Moved My Cheese?
Yeah.
The cheese right now is in these little cheap rental properties that we're picking up for 30, selling for 35 or 40, and that will rent for $900 a month.
Yeah. These
are really good. I mean, our investors are getting anywhere from 13 to 17% net cash on cash return. Numbers similar to probably what you're seeing in Dallas in certain markets. But we stay out of the really bad areas. We focus on good middle income, blue collar neighborhoods. So that's where we're getting most of our systems. That's where most of our systems are running right now. And on the nicer homes, our marketing message is still the same. Hey, we want to buy your house. But most of those deals, so you asked about percentages.
I'm just curious because there's a lot of reasons why that won't work, for if they need their money right away, or if the house isn't livable, or
but they don't want
to be a landlord maybe. But
there's still a ton of sellers out there that don't have any equity in their house, so they would love to sell it. And I ask this question all the time: what are you going to do, Mr. Seller, if you can't sell this house? What are you going to do? Rent it? Okay. Well, why rent it to a tenant who's going to call you every time the faucet leaks? Right. Why not rent it to somebody who wants to buy it, who will fix the faucet themselves? So we pitch it totally different because, everybody would love to sell their house, but they can't. Not everybody can. Right. And even in this market, it's starting to rebound a little bit. I'm actually seeing it start to come down again. But, the market is rebounding a little bit. And so sellers are starting to get real nervous. They're not getting the interest. They're not getting a ton of showings. They've already moved. The house has been vacant. They've been making payments for 6 months on an empty house. They're starting to freak out, and they're thinking, I'm going to have to rent this place out. Well, we like to tell them, look, that's great. You can rent it, but try renting it to somebody who wants to buy it, and you're going to get a much better quality tenant in there. There's a lot of advantages to it.
Right.
And so it's just on figuring that out.
And how do you advise people that still have a mortgage? Are you just kind of advising them on how to do a subject to and
well, personally, I don't like subject twos.
Yeah, I don't either, but a lot of people do. A lot of people do them. So
yeah, and I know they're bigger in Texas than they are pretty much anywhere else. But with subject twos, I just think there's a little too much risk involved in that for my liking. But I make sure that the mortgage payment covers the rent. I mean, the
Right.
rent covers the mortgage payment.
Sure,
And we use a third-party servicing company. So the third party collects the rent from the tenant and pays the mortgage every month. We take that out of the seller's hands. And that protects the tenant buyer, because the last thing you want to have happen is that tenant's been paying rent every month and then they get a foreclosure notice from the bank because the seller hasn't been paying the mortgage.
Right. So you said you typically take an assignment fee and then you're kind of out of it. But
Yeah.
if you're setting up that loan management or payment management, payment servicing, I guess, or
Yeah.
do you stay involved then, or you just kind of connect the dots and say, here's who you use, or
I have an attorney that handles all the paperwork, okay, and his name is on the contract. And we also use his servicing company. He has a escrow company.
Okay.
They'll collect the upfront option deposit, which is our assignment fee, and so that initial money is made out to the escrow company, and then they disperse it, and then they collect the rent every month. So, yeah, and here's the thing too: that we assign.
But you're out of it. You're not.
We're out of the deal.
A year
And the
from now,
seller-
if somebody doesn't make a payment, they're not calling you.
Well, yeah, the
Hopefully.
seller is responsible. It's just like if they were going to be renting their house out.
Right.
They're making that payment every month. They're responsible for that. And the seller also has to sign a document that's allowing me to assign it to that tenant buyer. So they're approving that tenant buyer also, as it were. And there's no hidden. We're not trying to hide anything. Everything is fully disclosed.
Right.
And we're only assigning that contract to somebody that the seller has already approved.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, Joe, if folks want to learn more about, I know you have some different programs available on teaching kind of systems and automation and marketing and wholesale lease options. You've got all sorts of stuff out there. What are some of the best places for folks to go to learn more?
Well, I guess my main website, joemccall.com, is the best place to go. Thanks.
Okay.
joemccall.com. And then my podcast is realestateinvestingmastery.com.
Awesome.
If you're interested in St. Louis deals, stlouiscashflowdeals.com.
Awesome. We'll add links to the page here
Cool.
for everybody to easily find you, so they don't have to remember all those. But Joe, I'm excited to talk to you more in the near future, and definitely appreciate you being on today.
Thank you, Mike.
And appreciate your willingness to share information and make this a better industry for sure.
Awesome.
Thanks, Joe. Take care. Are you a member of FlipNerd.com, the most robust real estate investing platform in existence, where you can find off-market wholesale deals and great vendors literally in your market? You can get access to advice from experts and learn about local clubs and events right in your backyard. If not, please visit FlipNerd.com and register for a free account. You can register in less than a minute. It's pretty much the coolest site that's ever existed in the real estate investing industry, so get on over to FlipNerd.com.